everyone, my name is Tommy with Boys and Girls Clubs of St. Lucie County, and welcome to our virtual club. Today, we're continuing our book, Charlotte's Web. Before we get started, I want to introduce a very special guest. Behind me is our guest illustrator, Anne-Marie. She's going to be illustrating the pictures to the words that I'm reading while I'm reading. And then afterwards, you're going to get a very cool printable custom coloring page that you can do at home while you listen to this video. Last time we read chapter 3, so today we're doing chapter 4. Chapter 4 of Charlotte's Web is called Loneliness. The next day was rainy and dark. Rain fell on the roof and the barn dripped steadily from the eaves. Rain fell in the barnyard and ran into crooked courses down into the lane where thistles and pigweed grew. Rain spattered against Mr. Zuckerman's kitchen windows and came gushing out the downspouts. Rain fell on the backs of the sheep as they grazed through the meadow. When the sheep, tired of standing in the rain, they walked in slowly in the lane and into the fold. Rain upset Wilbur's plans. Wilbur had planned to go out. He wanted to go out this day and dig a new hole in his yard. Those sound like some big plans, huh? He had other plans too. His plans for the day went something like this. Breakfast at 6:30. Skim milk crust, bits of donuts, and Pop-Tarts, and some drops of maple syrup, and maybe some potato skins, and leftover pudding with raisins, and some bits of shredded wheat. Is that something you would like to eat for breakfast? That sounds like a lot of different things. Put in the comments if you like any of the stuff Wilbur likes for breakfast. Breakfast would be finished at 7. From 7 to 8, Wilbur planned to have a talk with Templeton, the rat which lived under his trough. Talking with Templeton was not the most interesting occupation in the world, but it was better than nothing. From 8 to 9, Wilbur planned to take a nap outdoors in the sun. From 9 to 11, he planned to dig a hole and possibly find something good buried in the dirt. From 11 to 12, he planned to stand still and watch flies on the boards, and watch bees in the clover, and watch swallows fly in the air. 12 o'clock, lunchtime. Warm water, apples, meat gravy, some carrots, meat scraps, some stale hominy, and the wrapper off a package of cheese. Lunch would be over at 1. From 1 to 2, Wilbur planned to sleep. From 2 to 3, he planned to scratch itchy eyes by rubbing his face against the fence. From 3 to 4, he planned to stand perfectly still and think of what it was like to be alive and wait for Fern. At 4 would come supper. Skim milk, leftover sandwich from Lurvy's lunchbox, prune skins, a bit of this, a bit of that, fried potatoes, and a little more of this and a little more of that, a piece of baked apple, and some scraps from an old cake. Wilbur had gone to sleep thinking about these plans. He woke up at 6 and he saw the rain and it seemed as though he couldn't bear it. So he planned out his whole day. He's worried about the rain ruining all those wonderful plans that he made for his whole day. I get everything all beautifully planned out and it has to go and rain, he said. For a while he stood gloomily indoors. Then he walked to the doors and looked out. Drops of rain stuck to his face. His yard was cold and wet. His trough had an inch of rain in it. Templeton was nowhere to be seen. "Are you there, Templeton?" called Wilbur. There was no answer. Suddenly, Wilbur felt loneliness and friendless. "One day just like another," he groaned. "I'm very young. I have no real friend in the barn. It's going to rain all morning and all afternoon, and Fern won't come in such bad weather. Oh, honestly." And Wilbur was crying again, and for the second time in 2 days. At 6:30, Wilbur heard the banging of a pail. Lurvy was standing in the rain, stirring up his breakfast. "Come on, pig," said Lurvy. Wilbur did not budge. Lurvy dumped the slops, scrapped the pail, and walked away. He noticed that something was wrong with the pig. Wilbur didn't want food. He wanted love. He wanted a friend, someone who could play with him. He mentioned this to the goose, who was sitting quietly in the corner of the sheepfold. "Will you come over and play with me?" he asked. "Sorry, Sonny, sorry," said the goose. "I'm sitting on my eggs, 8 of them. Got to keep them toasty-oasty warm. I have to stay right here. I'm no flibberty-gibberty-gibbet. I do not play when there are eggs to hatch. I'm expecting goslings." "Well, I didn't think you were expecting woodpeckers," said Wilbur bitterly. Wilbur next tried one of the lambs. "Will you come play with me?" he asked. "Certainly not," said the lamb. "In the first place, I cannot get into your pen, as I am not old enough to jump the fence. In the second place, I'm not interested in pigs. Pigs mean less than nothing to me." "What did that mean, less than nothing?" Wilbur replied. "I don't think there is such a thing as less than nothing. Nothing is absolutely the limit of nothingness. It's the lowest you can go. It's the end of the line. How can something be less than nothing? If there was something that was less than nothing, then nothing would be nothing. It would be something. Nothing wouldn't be nothing. It would be something. Even though it's just a very little bit of something. But if nothing is nothing, then nothing has nothing that is less than it is." "Oh, be quiet," said the lamb. "Go play by yourself. I don't play with pigs." Sadly, Wilbur lay down and listened to the rain. Soon he saw the rat climbing down a slanting board that eased towards the stairway. "Will you play with me, Templeton?" asked Wilbur. "Play?" said Templeton, twirling his whiskers. "Play? I hardly know the meaning of the word." "Well," said Wilbur, "it means to have fun and frolic and run and skip and be merry." "I never do those things if I can avoid them," replied the rat sourly. "I prefer to spend my time eating, gnawing, spying, and hiding. I am a glutton but not a merrymaker. Right now, I'm on my way to your trough to eat your breakfast, since you haven't gotten sense enough to eat it yourself." And Templeton the rat crept stealthily along the wall and disappeared into a private tunnel he had dug between the door and Wilbur's trough in the yard. Templeton was a crafty rat. He had things pretty much his own way. The tunnel was an example of his skill and cunning. The tunnel enabled him to get to the barn, to the hiding place, under the pig trough without coming out into the open. He had tunnels and runways all over Mr. Zuckerman's farm and could get from one place to another without being seen. Usually he slept during the daytime and was only out after dark. Wilbur watched him disappear into the tunnel. In a moment, he saw the rat's sharp nose poke out from underneath the wooden trough. Cautiously, Templeton pulled himself up over the edge of the trough. That was almost more than Wilbur could stand, on one dreary, rainy day, to see his breakfast being eaten by somebody else. He knew Templeton was getting soaked out there in the pouring rain, but even that didn't comfort him. Friendless, dejected, and hungry, he threw himself down in the manure and sobbed. Late that afternoon, Lurvy went to Mr. Zuckerman. "I think there's something wrong with that pig of yours. He hasn't touched his food." "Give him 2 spoonfuls of sulfur and a little molasses," said Mr. Zuckerman. Wilbur couldn't believe what was happening to him when Lurvy caught him and forced the medicine down his throat. This was certainly the worst day of his life. He didn't know whether he'd be able to endure this awful loneliness anymore. Darkness settled over everything. Soon there were only shadows and noises of the sheep crawling their curds, and occasionally the rattle of a cow chain up overhead. You can imagine Wilbur's surprise when out of the darkness came a small voice he had never heard before. It sounded rather thin but pleasant. "Do you want a friend, Wilbur?" it said. "I'll be a friend to you. I've watched you all day and I like you." "But I can't see you," said Wilbur, jumping to his feet. "Where are you? And who are you?" "I'm right up here," said the voice. go to sleep. You'll see me in the morning. And that's the end of chapter 4. Chapter 5, our next chapter, is called Charlotte. So remember, there's going to be a custom coloring page that was drawn by our guest illustrator, and you can color that picture and comment it below on this video. And we hope to see you next time when we go to chapter 5, Charlotte. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.